TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Welcome to another edition of the RF Video Shoot Interview Series. We are joined once again by none other than Bret the Hitman Hart, former WWF, WCW champion. It's like deja vu. We're back again with you.
One more time.
Yes. I want to talk about WCW. We left off with WCW. What were the plans that you discussed with Eric Bischoff upon entering WCW?
Yeah, Eric Bischoff, when I first met him, I met him quite a few times, and I've always believed, and still do, I think he did have the best intentions. Whatever happened to stop that from ever happening, I'm not sure who really knows.
Were you apprehensive going into WCW with all the politics that was going on there?
Always. Right. Always. I was always apprehensive about going to the WCW for the politics, and I was always apprehensive about the from an artistic standpoint. I knew I wouldn't do well in the rings there.
Right. Were you apprehensive about running to anyone that you had bad mouth, maybe like Ric Flair? I know you did a lot of stuff on Ric Flair's style.
Well, I expected it, but I never got it, and I probably deserved it. I was pretty condemning of Hogan and Flair and certain guys at that time. I think I was so sort of WF'd in my head, you know.
Right.
And I think a lot of what I said was probably fair criticism too. But when I met Flair and Hogan, I went to them both and we talked. And I think of Shawn Michaels. How many times I went to Shawn Michaels and sort of patched things up and realized how totally plastic it all was. But with Flair and Hogan, I never sensed that. I thought they treated me really well the whole time I was there. I never had any disagreements with either one of them. And if anything, Ric Flair treated me really, really well. He treated me with a lot of respect. And anything I ever said about him or things that he heard that I might have said or whatever never seemed to matter to him at all. And I've always had a lot of regard for him on that. Like, I thought he was a class. It never made any difference to him at all. Right. Treated me really well. And Hogan was the same.
Were you disappointed with the way you were brought in and debuted as far as your background for Starrcade, you were the special ref?
I found myself scratching my head from the day I got there and the day I left. And going, these guys have no idea how to run wrestling. And Vince McMahon told me that before I ever got there. He said WCW would never know what to do with a Bret Hart. And boy, was he right on that. Did
you get a sense from Scott Hall and Kevin Nash that you were maybe a threat to them when you first entered?
No. I never got that impression either, but I got the impression that there was a lot of politics with certain factions.
Right.
And the Nash and Hall group were trying to usurp the Hogan's group, and I think even Flair's group was another group. There was all these guys sort of jockeying for position, and instead of working together. And I don't know that maybe that was Eric's fault of not being able to sort of bring everyone together and sort of shed a little light on everyone, make everybody happy. He didn't seem to know how to do that.
Right. What are the differences between the atmosphere between WWF and WCW?
Well, it's funny because I've always said the wrestlers are all interchangeable. They're almost all kind of the same kind of guys.
Right.
I found that, obviously the WWF was a lot more polished, but the actual talent, the guys in the dressing room, seemed like to me every night they tried harder and harder and harder all the time. I never thought there was much difference between you pointed them in their direction and you sent them to the ring with a certain amount of time to go in there, and they were always trying their hardest. From the Mexican guys to I think it was very similar, to be honest. The only difference was that one company had a direction and one company didn't.
Right. Now, at the time you were in WCW, on Monday Night Raw, they did a skit with the midget, where they brought out the midget, Bret Hart. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know. I guess it kind of stung a bit. I would love to be able to say that it didn't bother me, but it bothered me just thinking, geez, I remembered the week I quit, or not quit, but I gave my notice to Vince McMahon. I mentioned something like that to him on the phone. How I think I brought up the Ted Turner skits with the old guy that looked like Hogan, and the other guy with doing the Macho Man thing. And I said it more as a joke, but I was kind of asked it in kind of a serious way that if I suppose I'll be subject to that kind of stuff when I leave. And he said, never happened to Bret Hart with this company. And it was also in that same conversation, I think that it was in the phone call conversation. He said that I would always have access to my history and my footage and all those kind of things. And we were still leaving on the best of terms. And that, in a lot of ways, I thought, I'll be back in 3 years.
Right.
And of course, that never happened.
Did you ever attempt to bring Owen over with you to WCW?
Yeah, right away.
And why did that not happen?
Owen was really uncomfortable even working there after that. Owen was as upset, maybe almost as upset as I was, but he also was locked into I think he got a 1.5 years and a 5-year contract, and they would not let him out of his contract. Vince was very adamant about it. They tried to, and they did. They succeeded by giving him a little extra money, which again, he didn't have any choice. It was better to take whatever he could get. But he was very distressed with having to work for somebody that openly did to me in front of him and in front of everyone else, and then expected Owen to swallow it and get in line like nothing ever happened. And Owen and me were very close, but at the same time, his sort of hands were tied. And so I think Owen, who was really, really affected by it, never let on after a certain point how much it affected him, because he knew that it would only cost him more. Like if they wanted to run him more, they could. So he kind of kept a lot of that to himself and didn't say much. I know I had a conversation with Owen, many conversations over that time period, and I was trying to express to him how he should go about demanding a release. I said, you should tell Vince that you find it very awkward to work for someone who blatantly did what he did, and that you would feel just more comfortable if he would let you go. And I had talked to Eric Bischoff about hiring Owen if he got a release, and he said he would hire Owen, but he would pay him the same as his contract was, but he wouldn't pay him any more if that was the case, which was nice of him. And I relayed that to Owen, and of course I think they upped his money maybe then, and then it got to be kind of like a little game.
Right.
And that's when Eric started going, well, I'm not going to get into a thing here.
Interesting.
And so I remember Owen was kind of caught where he didn't know what to do. And I was I understand his circumstance. And so when I remember I got a call with Owen on the phone and Vince Russo. And it was a strange call. I actually enjoyed telling this story. But Vince Russo, of course, got on the phone and he was telling me how sorry it was such a shame that it ever happened, and on and on and on and on. And then it went on about how Vince had no choice. Vince had to do what he had to do. And I said, what are you talking about? He never had to do any of this. This was strictly somebody going just trying to just ruin you for the heck of it. There wasn't a difference in the world doing this on a Sunday or a Monday or a Wednesday or what. I had lots of time, lots of days set up in the next 4 weeks where I could have dropped the belt to anybody, including Sean. And so we kind of had I wouldn't say an angry call, but I certainly gave my side of things a bit about the same way I just said to you. And I just kept pushing the fact that if they had the company had any real integrity, that Owen go. But I remember when I finally hung up the phone, I was only giving, this was like what I thought was all friends talking on the phone. And I hung my phone up, walked over my stairwell and started to go down my basement, and my phone rang. And it was Vince McMahon on the phone. And of course, Vince Russo denies this whole thing ever happened. When I talked to him, he says it must have been a coincidence. But I've never been able to really digest that, unfortunately. I never believed that. It was just too much of a coincidence. And because Vince called me up and he had been listening to every word I said with my brother Owen and Vince Russo on the phone. So it was a 4-way call without me knowing Vince was on there. And he said right out, he said, if you stick your nose in Owen's business again, I will sue you for torso interference. I will sue you with a smile on my face. I will sue you for everything you got. And you have, anyway, gave me this big bad dog interview on the phone. And I said the same thing, very calmly. I said to Vince, I said, if you have any integrity, just let him go. Why don't you just let him go? He said, I'm not letting him go, and I'll never let him go. And again, he threatened me with legal stuff, and then he slammed the phone down on me. And that was the last conversation I had with Vince McMahon prior to meeting him at Owen's funeral. And so I called Owen a few minutes later, and I said, Owen, I can't get involved in your stuff. I can't wait. This is getting me into a lot of trouble. And I know that Owen felt really bad that he got me into that kind of a situation. Neither one of us ever felt the same about Vince Russo again. And when I saw Owen, I think at Christmas time, he was very kind of almost quiet and kind of subdued and whatnot. And I remember I pulled him aside and I said, what's the matter with you? He goes, I thought you were mad at me. And I said, no, I'm not mad. It happened. All I'm trying to do is all I was trying to do is look out for you. If you can't get out of your deal, you can't get out of your deal. But don't ever let the wrestling business ever get between you and you. I said, I don't care as long as you just take care of yourself. And a lot of those words that I remember saying to him that day, they echo all the time, because I wish I'd been there to kind of watch out for him a little more.
Right. Now, when you first went in WCW, one of your first programs was with Ric Flair. What was the reason given to you as why, after you and Flair did good numbers, the program was dropped, and then the tag team was formed, and then they dropped the tag team with you and Rick? Just bad
Mickey
decisions?
Mouse said so. I don't know. They never knew. I don't know. They would tell you one thing, and then they'd cut it off and make up another plan the next day. They were the WCW didn't know a good idea from a bad idea, and they never ever did. I saw them.
Was it frustrating to be kept off pay-per-views like Super Brawl and Spring Stampede, and do you think it was politically related?
I don't know. I know a lot of wrestlers that'll tell you that Hogan sabotaged my career. Everyone else's career had everything to do with, and it might be plausible, but I never ever saw Hulk Hogan ever directly interfere in my matches or seem to have any say or control in anything I was doing. If he did, he was certainly all behind the scenes.
Right.
I don't know if it was guys like Kevin Sullivan or Kevin Nash. I mean, you could sit there and wonder and point fingers and really drive if it really bothered you that much. I guess it didn't bother me that much, but I did shake my head and go, I wonder why they sure don't know what they're doing.
Right. Was there any plans to ever reform the Hart Foundation, maybe with Chris Jericho or Chris Benoit?
I suggested that. That went wayward. That was one of those ideas immediately tossed in the discard pile. And, a good example of a situation. I'll give you a good example of mindless stupidity in that company, and I'm not sure who I'm dropping this at whose feet, kind of thing. But I came up with the idea with the steel plate. I got the idea, I think, from Kevin Nash, actually, so I'll give him some credit for that. But when Kevin Nash was talking about it, didn't make any sense for anyone else to do it but me. I'm the only one that had the hockey jersey that would hide a vest, a steel shield, and all that. So the first thing I did is I went to get Bill Goldberg with it. I said, Bill, I have an idea. I explained to Bill everything about the idea. I asked him if he felt comfortable with it. Because once we did the match where I did that to him, he would come back and he could do whatever he wanted, whether he liked it or not, whether I liked it or not. And everything was fine. He loved it. He goes, I love it. It's great. So then I went to Eric Bischoff. So I started talking to Eric Bischoff about it. He goes, I love it. That is unbelievable. I love it. He goes, the only problem is we're going to have to sell Goldberg on it. I said, I've already sold Goldberg on it. I already talked. You talked to Goldberg about it? I said, what? He goes, what did he say? I said, he said it was fine. He loves it. Great. So then we're getting to the thing where they're going to start building me for Goldberg in Toronto. And I haven't done anything for the whole time I'm there. Well, I get to, Eric goes off to France or something. So I got about 3 weeks or 4 weeks before this Toronto show. And first they had me lose to Booker T out in California somewhere, which was fine. He was one of the guys I would love to have put over. I wish I could have put him over properly, to be honest. I just said, it's such wrong timing. You're supposed to be getting me ready for Bill Goldberg, and now you want to beat me. But then it became a question of, and Eric was there, but it became a question of just do it so that we can sort of prove that you're business around here. Everyone that kind of got the feeling that you're not business, they don't like to do jobs or something. It's like, geez, I think I've done a few jobs since I've been here.
Right.
But anyway, I said, I don't care. Fine. I don't want it to reflect. And I pulled Booker T on it too, just so I said, I want you to know I have no problem putting it over. I said, it's just a question of the timing of it. And I try to give him as good a match as maybe one of the best matches, with the exception of Benoit's matches that I had was with Booker that night. But, so I got that over with. And then I said, okay, well, now they're going to start building me next week. And then they stuck me in, I can't remember what the matches were, to be honest, but I know they were, every time I showed up, there was either a tag match or I was doing something stupid with, like, every week. It was not building me for anything.
Right.
Typical WCW. They're not going to build me for anything. And I'm going, this is crazy. And finally, a couple of times I refused to. They had me in a tag match in Worcester, Mass. With Dean Malenko. And Dean Malenko was going to beat me with his hole or something like that. And I said, no, we're not doing that. And I ended up working with who's the big tall guy, blonde hair guy, long hair guy.
Van Hammer?
Van Hammer, right. And got a big win instead to build me up for Toronto. So I'm scratching my head going, this is such a shame because it's such a great idea and would do so well and would really, really could even get that whole Canada-US thing going if that's what like
right.
Anything's better than nothing with this
right.
company. And so I did get to Toronto finally. Eric Bischoff, who I haven't seen for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, had gone to France. And whoever was in charge, which was Kevin Nash and those guys. And I don't blame Kevin, so I don't know who to blame, to be honest. And this is maybe much help for you guys to try to sort of figure it out. But I get to the dressing room, and Eric Bischoff pulls me aside. And I've always been dumbfounded by the stupidity here. He goes, I got a couple ideas. I'm just going to run them by you. You go out. This is about 2:30 in the afternoon. That you go outside, get on the mic, and you can start telling all the Canadian fans that where the hell have they been? They haven't done anything for you lately. And then you cut this whole promo, just tear into the Canadian fans. Tell them what piece of shit they are, kind of thing. And I said, you're kidding me. And he goes, how do you like it? Like he thinks I'm gonna.
Right.
I go, Eric, I said, just stop for a second. Stop everything. Just listen. This is at 2:30 in the afternoon. You could hear them chanting my name. I don't know how many, maybe 10,000 people outside the building chanting my name, and which was really moving. But I mean, you could hear it in the dressing room. It was no exaggeration. I said, you're crazy. I would never do it. I will never do it. I will not flat out refuse to do it. And then he goes almost like he goes, well, Hogan's got an idea. Tell me how you like this.
Right.
And he goes, you do the thing with Goldberg. He spears you. You roll over. You take the jersey off. You throw the jersey down. Goldberg's out. Here comes Hogan. Hogan walks out. Hogan comes out. Comes in the ring. You guys go to high five. Hogan knees you in the stomach, clubs you down, beats the shit out of you, leaves you laying. I guess Hogan working with Goldberg? He goes, no. I said, am I working with Hogan? He goes, no. I said, well, why the fuck would I do it? Why would anybody do that? Why is he even in there?
Right.
He goes, it's just it would fool everybody. So this is Eric Bischoff. This is what I always say about Eric Bischoff. He didn't have a clue about the wrestling business. He didn't understand that is like the stupidest idea. Mm-hmm. And I said, that makes no sense whatsoever. I said, you're trying to build me for Goldberg. This is a great idea between me and Bill. And Eric was biting his fingernails about me turning Goldberg heel. Goldberg now is refusing to do any of it. He doesn't want to do any of the match now. Someone got under his skin and said that this was going to kill him. Right. This was going to kill him off. And I find myself going, this is such a good idea for television and drama. And it's going to be great for this crowd, this city. It's great for wrestling. I can't get these morons to see how good this is. This is a really good idea. And it's good for them. And Bill will get his comeuppance. He's going to kick my head off and just beat my brains in and do whatever he does to everyone else in a few days from now. But they could not get it. And finally, does make me wonder about Eric Bischoff and his relationship with Hogan, because he says, you got to talk to Hulk Hogan. If Terry says it's okay, I'll let you do it. I walked right up to Terry with Eric. And I said, Terry, I don't know what to tell you other than I don't think there's any reason for you to be out there. And I explained my whole position to him. And in fairness to Hulk, he looked at me and goes, I agree with you. I don't need to be out there. Why would I be out there? And then I looked at Eric, and Eric's almost looked like 1,000,000 pounds was off his back. And then he let us do it. Right. Then I went and talked to Goldberg, who was still pacing around like a Brahma bull up and down the halls like somebody was trying to, and then he finally consented that he would kind of do it and kind of calmed himself and kind of just, I think poor Bill had a lot of guys pulling him a lot of different directions. And I understand how confused he was, because he moved from right from out of nowhere to this huge position. Bill's problem, I guess, and maybe it's fair to say that he didn't know who to trust. But even that, I went out. I didn't want to. I knew it would work for me, and I knew it would work for the angle. And then I wore that Hitman jersey, and I wore Toronto Maple Leaf jersey underneath. Right. If they had seen me wear that Toronto Maple Leaf jersey, they would have gone nuts. They would have Eric Bischoff. And when I did go out there, I just started getting warmed up in my interview. I think for the very first time since I've been in the WCW, I was having a really good interview. I was really just starting to get rolling. Right. And they were panicking back in the hallways. Eric Bischoff was literally freaking out that I was killing his star in the middle of the ring with my interview, and sent Goldberg out. He sent him out about 45 seconds early, which was, I still got everything I needed done. But it just bothered me that they were so... No patience. No sense of trust or appreciation for a good idea. And it turned out to be, then Eric called me a few days later, and it was like everyone was now taking credit for the great idea. What a great idea. And so Eric was very confusing sometimes, and I think he just never had a clue about the wrestling business.
He also did a deal with you, I guess it was your match at Slamboree with Randy Savage, where Piper got involved with the match, and it made no sense. I don't know. It was
Yeah, nothing there. If you asked me to name the things that they did do that made sense, I'd really have to scratch my head.
What are your memories of your series with Sting? And do you think the company dropped the ball with that?
Yeah, they dropped the ball with everything. Like I said, if you ask me what name the good things they did, the only good thing that I ever did in the WCW was the match with Benoit in Kansas City. And the only good thing was the thing in Toronto with Goldberg, which is amazing that it was ever done or pulled off. But everything else, even the match where I won the title in Toronto was a complete abortion with all those run-ins and stuff like that.
I was going to ask you about that.
Well, yeah, a real idiot would put a match like that together.
At what point do you think Eric Bischoff lost control, and did you ever lose confidence in him?
Yeah, I think I really lost confidence in Eric in Toronto. That's when I really saw that this was a case of you're signed on with some people that are like, how much do you want to try working for these guys anymore? And I never did not try. I always came back thinking like, okay, especially I come home I was having surgery, abdominal surgery, and I was going to be out for about 2 to 3 months. And even that, I got surgery. I had the surgery on like on a Tuesday or Wednesday or something like that. Eric Bischoff called me on Sunday morning. They're having a pay-per-view. I wouldn't say I'm on crutches, but I can barely walk across the room. calls me up and asks me if I can show up at the pay-per-view. I said, Eric, I just had surgery like 2 days ago. It's like you could tell them stuff. They either never wrote it down or they never knew it. They never had any idea. And I also had, I think I knew Eric's days were numbered maybe is when I showed up. I flew down to Chicago, had a meeting with Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff in Chicago. And I was really reluctant to come back to wrestling. I wasn't sure if I was. This was sort of sell me on the idea that it would be worth it, good for me to come back. And
so Hogan obviously had a lot of power if he was meeting with you, with Eric.
But I never thought I think if he did, he was very silent about throwing weight around.
Right.
Maybe a lot of his weight that he threw around was behind the scenes. So I don't know of any personal situation where he controlled anything that happened with me. But he was there, and I think he was there more because we were going to put me and Hogan against each other. That was the whole plan. So maybe that's why Hulk was there. Again, he was really good with me, and Eric was really good with me. And I said, look, if I do come back, I feel really uncomfortable and really feel so phony to me to I get in a heel babyface situation in the beginning. People haven't seen me. I think there's a lot of people who will feel sympathetic towards me in a very strong way. And all of a sudden I've got someone like some big wrestler, let's say, I don't even know who, but some heel kicking the crap out of me, working me over and choking me and mauling me like a bear kind of thing. I just think it'd be like, I don't even want to watch it. I don't even want to watch poor Bret Hart get it. I feel so bad about everything he's gone through already. It's not good TV.
Right.
It's just not good TV. Not forever. But the very first pictures of me coming back, and it's like, I almost wish I hadn't come back. I said, I don't want that. I don't want that sympathy thing coming back and falling on my, don't want to pull me down any more than it already has. And I said, I really find it almost bad taste to envision it. I said, if I'm going to come back, I have to be in a babyface match. I'd like to be in some babyface matches give some really sort of class matches for just a little while to get me over that little hump for maybe 2 to 3 months. And Sting was a guy, so I'd love to work with him. I'd love to work with Hogan, obviously,
right.
And Benoit. And I started naming guys. I said, let me get through some of those guys and show a little classy side. And then eventually start working once I get into a wrestling routine, then I finally will work with a heel that can do something like, because wrestling was always so extreme all the time. They're running you over with cars.
Right.
I just did, after what happened with Owen, I just thought it was also, I couldn't do it. I will not do that. I'm not going to be part of anything like that, not for a little while. And they totally agreed. They're going to start building me for Hogan. They're building me to win the title from Hogan. That's the way I understood it. Because I don't imagine there was any point in working without a title. And so it all sounded pretty good, and Hogan was behind it, and they were going to kick it off in the end of the summer. I was going to get ready to come back and start training and get ready to work hard again. I was still recovering from a groin injury, and so I left that meeting thinking like, okay, I've got 2 months to get ready. I'm going to get totally committed. Maybe I can maybe we can turn things around. Maybe we can make this a different kind of wrestling company. I still saw the one company as being good and one company as being bad. I'm not sure when it was, but I got a call from Eric in the middle of nowhere. I was supposed to do the Molson and Indie thing in Vancouver,
right?
Which was really bad because I think I left a lot of disappointment on that side of it. It affected my relationship with that company. They pulled me out of that. I have to go out to somewhere down in Florida, Tallahassee or something, and wrestle Hogan. And I wasn't advertised. Didn't make a lick of difference on the card. I have a babyface match with Hogan.
This is the TV one, right? Where there was no finish?
I don't think so.
Okay.
This was just a house show.
Okay.
It's just a house show. They pulled me out of where it was really important for me to be. I've been advertised for months. And they pulled me out of that and take me down to Tallahassee. That was WCW's deal. All the thing I was doing in Vancouver was awesome. So they had the right to pull me out. Take me all the way down to Tallahassee. I do a couple of lame matches with Hogan, only in the sense that no one even, I walk through the curtain, I'm wrestling Hulk Hogan, no one even knows it. I'm like, well, I guess this is something,
Right.
And we had a match. I can't remember what the ending was, but it was actually fun to work with Hulk and all that. And then I flew to Florida and I got ready for Miami TV tapings. My first TV back. I have not been on TV since I did my little talk in Atlanta, maybe. And all I know is that it had nothing in mind for me. Eric Bischoff started laying out. He got there. I waited. They used to always get on me about being late, because originally one of my things in my ideal was that Eric said I could, as long as I showed up in time for my match.
Right.
And that was in my sort of in my contract kind of thing. So I always used to show up about 6 o'clock, but it never made any difference. Someone told me what to do until about 30 seconds before I walked out anyway, about 6:30 or 7 o'clock. And of course, it was always later when it bombed or fell apart, like it was all messed up. They'd always say it's because you were late, So, yeah, sure. But anyway, they did.
What?
They had this thing with Lex Luger and somebody out pull apart. The dressing was Sting, maybe.
Right.
And I'm listening to the whole thing, and he goes, and then you're standing. I'm in there. I'm in the pull apart. I'm listening. I'm trying to be part of this whole company here. And finally, at the very end of the whole thing, I said, "So that's it?" He goes, "Yeah." Like, Eric, and this is like great stuff. I said, "Eric," I said, "I haven't been on TV since my brother was killed. People haven't seen me. And my big debut is standing in the background in the wrestling dressing room in a pull apart." And he's like, "Right." And he starts pacing around. It's like 10 minutes before showtime. He goes, "No, we start the show." Changes everything. We got into this big mad frenzy. He's running around and you're going to go out and you're going to do an interview at the top of the show. And I said, what am I doing an interview about?
Right.
And I'm not kidding. I'm walking along with Eric. I'm walking up to the ramp. The thing is going to start in about 30 seconds, live, nitro. And he's giving me the kind of the pointers. You're challenging Hogan, but it's not about a belt. It's about this and it's about that. And it's like music, fireworks. I go through and I try to cut this interview. I'm trying to remember what the hell I'm saying. And I did the best I could. And when I came back through the curtain, Eric's, I won't say furious, but he's really upset. You came across too heel. And I felt like saying, "Oh, fuck yourself. How the hell can you tell me, after all these months and all the things that I've had on my mind and all the things how you're going to do for me when I get to this moment, you guys have no thought put into it whatsoever, and you tell me with 30 seconds before I walk through the curtain, and then when I come back, you have the nerve to tell me that I didn't do it right?"
Do you think they tried to exploit you, maybe?
No, they were just, and you know what, it was always, I don't believe they had a bad heart, anybody. I think they were just really inept.
Right.
And they've always been inept. I remember I did a thing with Sting one time. And this was all, and the screw up on it was because I was late, but I showed up in the building, got my little thing. We had some kind of a back, we're fighting all through the building.
Right.
I remember it somewhere. And we eventually supposed to end up lying flat out cold. They come up with 2 ambulances, 2 stretchers, and put us both on. They carry us off. That's the end of the show. All right, so we fight and 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 we fight with everything from garbage cans to, we just did everything we could. We ran out of stuff to do. We worked hard, slammed ourselves into fridges and counters, tops, and all this backstage kind of stuff. And finally, we end up, after fighting forever, we do end up out cold, lying flat on our backs in the cement. But the WCW, whoever is in charge, which I guess would be Eric, forgot to tell the ambulance guys to come and get us. So they, the show, they're just lying there, like sleeping on the ground. And I can't get up and go, ambulance, and at the very end, Eric was upset and he said, "You got to start showing up on time." Nothing. This has nothing to do with me being on time, But anyway, so that the WCW was just a really poor, and I think maybe what happened with them was that they bit off more than they could chew. They didn't seem to know how to come up with enough stuff week to week to week. Remember the head?
Right.
That was a brilliant idea. I mean, when I read Mankind's book, because I certainly haven't lost my sense of humor about it, but it is amusing it's like, after I read his book, it's like, boy, did I walk into that company and it was just as screwed up as you could ever imagine.
Where were you when you heard about Owen?
I was on an airplane. I was going to do the Jay Leno show. I wasn't actually going to do the show, but I was going to come amazingly pop out of the crowd or something like that.
Right. Do you think Vince should have stopped the show?
Yes. I don't think anybody should have. I don't understand anyone else's thinking in it. I don't know how you could go on. I think he should have stopped the show for sure. I don't think if Vince had dropped little Stephanie from the ceiling, I think he would have stopped the show.
As far as the next night on Raw, what were your feelings watching that show?
I didn't like it. I know that people will say that they poured their hearts out and they meant everything they said, and I don't disagree with that. I think everyone meant well, maybe why, but in truth, it's not the right place to express that. It's not. You don't do stuff like that for ratings. You don't do things like that with a camera on. I found a lot of. It wasn't the fitting kind of tribute to Owen that I thought. And I thought if you were going to do a special maybe on Owen, where you show his matches and things about him, but I don't know. It reeked of pro wrestling. It was something a slimy, rotten wrestling promoter would do to capitalize even more. And I just, a lot of the wrestlers, a lot of them, my heart went out to them when I saw them break down crying. This is awful, watching someone cry on TV. And it's the wrong forum to do it in.
What happened with the meeting with you and Vince, and how was it arranged, the one at the park?
That was set up by Carlo DeMarco, who'd been sent up to try to help or to try to mediate, I guess, some of the obvious bad feelings, or because Carlo was somebody that, and I still like Carlo. He was somebody that could come into the household and not get shot. Yeah. And at the same time, he was someone that could go back and, tell everybody what's going on. He came to me, Vince called me 4, 5, 6 times. My old pal told me.
Did he ever try to get you back to WF before Owen's death?
No. Never had another conversation with him, other than the one I talked about with Vince Russo. But with Vince, I didn't want to meet him. I said, I don't know. I'm just not ready. It was a really tough thing for me. And I was carrying a lot of stuff on my back. And I just didn't know how to deal with Vince. And I really resent, just so you know, and maybe it's a good chance for anyone that cares to know, I really resent the insinuation by that company and even by certain members of my family that have sort of festered it, that my whole thing is sort of built on this grudge or vendetta about what happened to me in Montreal. I can't think of anything more of an insult to me than that. It's such an insult. It's never had any place. What happened to me in a wrestling match in Montreal is absolutely it has no bearing on what happened with my brother Owen. 2 totally different things. On one someone got killed. One, I beat up a slimy promoter that deserved it and punched him out one time in the dressing room. And I went and left a company that was paying me X amount of dollars and got paid a lot more working for another company. And despite how it may look or feel to some people. I've never had any regrets about what I did. I've never had any regrets about leaving the company. My only regret would be is that I feel bad that a guy that I could work that hard for could treat somebody like he did me. But it's always been, there's a spin on it, and that bothers me. There's so many things I resent about the WWF that have nothing to do with Montreal, that have everything to do with the day my brother died and passed. And that's the real, like if I thought they were slimy before, yeah, they're the lowest. That Jerry McDivitt is the lowest slime of the world too. I think they divide and conquer. They divided and conquered my family with such ease. They came up there and threw money around to certain people, and they within seconds almost justified what happened to Owens. That's just one of those things, and it isn't just one of those things. And if it is just one of those things, maybe we should let a court of law, 12 jurors tell us that it's just one of those things. But and on the other hand, I certainly wasn't in control of Martha and her lawsuit. That's been a false accusation from the start too, that I'm calling the shots. Bret's running the show. Bret's behind this whole lawsuit. Absolutely untrue. I've never had anything to do with that lawsuut. I never had any say in that lawsuit. I wish I had. I wish I had been in control of that lawsuit, because if it had been me, it would still be going on. At least I'd know what happened. But anyway, going back to your question, the meeting that I had with Vince, he called me, I don't know how many times, every day, 2 or 3 times. These well-rehearsed sort of teary messages of how we've got to get together. And I'm thinking, I don't know what I want to say to him. I really don't. I'm so angry and hurt over this whole thing that happened. But at the same time, whatever happened isn't even important. So I'm trying to find a footing here to base some kind of I don't even know what he wants to talk to me about. And so I did. Martha, who I was with, right from the time I got home, asked me to show up just to be with her when she saw her lawyers. And I was. They weren't hired yet. And the lawyers, I said, Vince McMahon has been calling me. He wants to talk to me. I said, what are your feelings on it? And they went on, they actually didn't want me to meet him. Don't meet him. So I don't know how I can't meet him. I'm going to meet him somewhere at the funeral or whatever. And it was coming. And they said, well, whatever you do, don't talk about the case. And because it was, at this point, there wasn't a case yet, though. I wasn't sure. All I said is, it looks like there's going to be a lawsuit. And I think anyone from the second it happened concluded that there was probably going to be a lawsuit here. And I said, okay. So I finally agreed that I would meet Vince. And I was trying to think of where would I meet Vince? Where would I want to meet? And I thought I could just picture Vince meeting me in a hotel room or something, Just seems so slimy and creepy. He's kind of like he's like his character on TV, except for he's really like that.
Right.
And it's like, I said, if I meet Vince McMahon, I'm going to meet him somewhere in a park, somewhere. And I remember this park that I used to ride my bike all the time. When I used to ride my bike there all the time, I used to always sit there on the park bench and go, why this guy screwed me? I worked so hard for him. It was always just a spot where I sat. I said, if he wants to meet me so bad, he can meet me right there at that park. It's fresh air, birds chirping. And I was, during that week, I thought, that's where I want to meet him. If he wants to meet me, tell him to be there at 3 o'clock and I'll meet him. So they call me at 2 o'clock the day he gets in on the Sunday. And they tell me that Vince doesn't want to meet me in the park. He's scared I'm going to kill him. So Carlo DeMarcus, he's scared you're going to kill him. And so if he's scared I'm going to kill him, why does he want to meet me? I don't want to meet him. Tell him to go to hell. I don't give a shit. I don't even want to see the guy. This is his big idea. So then they call me back about 10 minutes later. It's okay. Vince will meet you. We'll meet you. It's not a problem. We'll meet you at the park. So I go to the park. Vince, because he didn't know where the park was, he had to follow me in his car. Gives me the big hug, it's like we're, almost enough to make you puke sometimes. But anyway, so I go sit with Vince in the park. And you know what? I was just trying to be fair, straight with him. Because like I said, what happened before is nothing. It's nothing. And I said, the first thing I said is the truth. I said, something about me, I can be pretty truthful. And I said, there's a good chance there's going to be a lawsuit. I don't know what happened. From what I can gather, what you said on TV and everything else, you don't know what happened. I know he wasn't up there, so how would he know? There's an investigation on. He goes, I don't know any more either than what I've already said. I said, well, look, we both know there's probably going to be a lawsuit and that we shouldn't talk about it. I was told not to talk about it to you, and let's not go there. Let's not talk about it. He goes, you're right. And then I tore a strip off him from running the show. I said, to talk to him about, I didn't raise my voice or anything.
Right.
I was very straightforward with him and told him how I thought it was wrong that they kept the show going. And he gave me his feeble reasons why he did, which were, I thought there was going to be a riot. If you can imagine people rioting because someone got killed in the wrestling film. I find that such lunacy. And then it was kind of like, it just kind of came out. I don't know if it was anything else. I know there was maybe one or two other issues we talked about, but I finally said, I always wanted to know why you screwed me. So I know what happened. Why did you screw me that week? And then he had his reasoning. Well, you wouldn't do business. I said, what do you mean I wouldn't do business? And everything he said, I had a better answer for. Well, then somebody was Sean. Sean told me they wouldn't know, naming I have all my facts.
Right.
Vince even then maybe he'd had a long week, justifiably, but I mean, he got sort of caught up in his lies all the time I was talking. And finally, he told me, he goes, it was the biggest mistake I ever made, biggest regret I've ever had. I've been sorry from the day I did it. And I would do anything to you should come back and work for me. You should come back and finish your career with me. And I will take care of you and blah, 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 this whole thing. And I was honest. I said, Vince, I can't even imagine going back to the wrestling business at all for anybody, just period. And so the thought of him giving me this job, which is what he did to everybody in my family, he's going to give me that, he's going to make me a bigger star, like he's going to do all this, and I think he would have too.
Do you think he just wanted to bring you back because he knew it would be such big business?
I think it would be a PR thing to get the dead brother's brother back after what happened, and it would show everybody like, oh, okay, there is a happy ending here or something. But it wasn't from here, you know.
But you don't think that it was also for the reason that bringing you back, he could do something with you and Sean again, and they could play off that whole big
I
thing?
had all kinds of angle. I worked with any of those guys, including him.
Right.
They say the biggest WrestleMania would have been versus Vince. But anyway, I was real straight with him and honest with him. And I remember finally one of the things I asked of Vince, I said, you promised me the week before I left. And then, of course, we had I did what I did. And I said, I'd like to ask you for access to my footage, because I had done that book that I did, which I hadn't even got to the pictures part of it, but I've got 14 years of pictures in the WWF. I don't have any pictures of my career. Now I don't think I have any pictures of all the pictures I have of my career when I worked for my father, which is a shame. I asked him about access to my footage, my archives, anything I need in relation to that, because it was always something I always wanted to have. And I said, I'm asking for me, and I'm asking for my brother Owen and his estate. And I said, I don't want it attached to any condition we should get it for what we've done in the past. And he cut me off, like he didn't even want to hear it. He says, you got it. You got it. Whatever you want, you got it. You call my office and you tell them, and they will take care of you this week. And I said, well, I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. And it did. And I thought, in a lot of ways, I might have been the first inkling of a bit of a thaw where I could at least maybe now today I could be speaking a little better of him. So but and I could, I think I've always been told that he watched me on Larry King, is what someone told me that same day, I think, or the next day. And apparently whatever I said on Larry King, he just said, I'm not, so I've never had any access to any of that stuff. As a matter of fact, his lawyer said by the Thursday of the funeral was on a Monday, I think, and by the time Thursday came around, Vince's lawyers had said that they didn't recall that part of the conversation taking place about giving me access to my archives and all that. I was also told that Vince was mic'd the whole time, and that I was also told that I was surrounded without my knowing about it all over the park by a SWAT team in case I pulled a gun out. They were going to shoot me or something like that. And I found that out from a policeman that said he was there, and they listened to every word I said, and they listened to every word that Vince said. And the cop that I spoke to said that he was a total slime. He said he goes, I was there. I listened to every word you said. We all had little pieces on and everything. So, you get an idea where the trust was. But anyway, so I've never, since that, from that day on, there was a complete different, all of a sudden I became I was driving the lawsuit. Bret's driving the lawsuit, and he's got this vendetta. Jerry McDivitt did a wonderful job of sort of painting me out to be the sort of the troublemaker and the guy that's, I've never had anything to do with the lawsuit. And my sisters both either were sold on the idea by him or did their own because they were looking to get their husbands harmed, Ellie and Diane, both, neither of which I talk to anymore.
What's the final outcome with the lawsuits?
It was a waste of time, I think for everybody. I guess what bothers me about it is that Vince McMahon decided he was worth $18 million, and that's the bottom line. And that bothers me because I don't think, maybe he's worth $18 million, maybe he's worth $9 million, maybe he's worth, I don't know how you can just justify, anyone can just put a figure on it. What I had hoped right from the beginning is that someone of a neutral party, or someone with no access to crime, 12 jurors, would sit there and go. But then in the end, to be really honest, what does it matter? 5 million, 10 million, 100 million, $300 billion. Money's never going to bring them back. It's the principle of finding out what happened and why, and someone paying for that mistake. And I don't think that was done. I still don't know what happened. Martha sort of braved on through this lawsuit with the best. She did the best she could. She hired, I think, really poor lawyers in the first place. That's my opinion. She hired a friend, which you never do, to help her. And and I think, they didn't do such a bad job maybe, but they were up against some lawyers that have took out the U.S. government, big time lawyers that will do anything to win. And for Martha to say that it was one of her quotes in the paper was that it was a total victory. I can never imagine me saying the words that it was ever a total victory. But she was undermined right from the very beginning by my own family, who were offered jobs. And my sister Ellie was sending all the legal documents directly to Jerry McDivitt, anything that happened in relation to my parents. And Martha was always, there's like so many spies in the camp that, and it breaks my heart to think about it. And then to have my sister Ellie and them sort of, their response to that is that I had a vendetta, which is, so people, I don't know how people, justify like, oh, okay, that makes it, Bret's got a vendetta. It's such an insult to me that I never had anything to do with the lawsuit. I was trying to be very helpful and try to be supportive. Never had any say in it at all. But my sisters really sabotaged it so much from the inside that Martha was forced into basically taking their offer and getting out of it and like locking up the doors and disappearing from my family forever, which is about what's happened. She's pretty much shut down from everybody, with the exception of maybe me and a couple of my brothers. But I don't think anyone ever found out what happened, and I don't think anyone really paid for it. Vince, from what I gathered, made about $10 million of it was insurance, and I'm not sure how much money was made off running the show two more times. I think they ran it, but I imagine Owen's death cost him about $3 million.
Now, you saw the off the record thing with Vince where he came on and we talked about your reading in the park. And you said that you had no heart, or something. He made a comment that said you wouldn't even talk about your brother.
Yeah, so that's such a cold-blooded thing to say. I was very clear. I said I'm not allowed.
Right.
I've been asked by Martha's lawyers to not talk about it, and he agreed. I would love to have talked about Owen, but I wasn't trying to be self-centered. I think I was. What else could have been more on my mind than my brother Owen? To say that, and to say I sat there with the face of a skeleton, I think he said, staring out like a skeleton. Let's drop Shane from the ceiling and I'll sit down beside you and we'll just have a casual conversation. We'll see how Vince's eyes look.
Right.
Picture
your critics that say that you're a hypocrite for criticizing the WWF about their sexuality and stuff, but yet you accepted Vince Russo.
Well, that's not true either. I don't think that I never had any say in what either company did. So I'm not a hypocrite because I was against that kind of wrestling all along. I was pretty clear about that. What I was going to say before about Vince Russo was that on one hand I can say he did a lot of really good things for me, but on the other hand I can tell you that he was absolutely the worst guy to ever pick to run the company.
Right.
When David Arquette won the title and things like that,
right?
You just go, this is a guy that's like, this guy should never been put in this place. He doesn't know. This guy was writing wrestling magazines and imagine you guys could run wrestling better than him.
Right.
So I think it was the wrong guy, and even though he was very good to me. As far as the content goes, I didn't have any say in the content. And after a while, you can get on the megaphone and announce it to the world every morning. But after a while, after you do that for two years in a row, do you really need to get up the next day and do it again? And it's like, I got where I said, you know what? I'm going to quit being the big, this thumper of right and wrong and wrestling and just get my check.
What are your memories of your great match with Chris Benoit?
Which one?
The one on TV. Yeah.
Really powerful match. Really emotional. Hard to even. It's already almost hit a bit of a soft spot. I'm just thinking about it. I haven't thought about it for a minute. He was always a very good friend of Owens. And when I came up with the idea, so I think the only actual idea they ever did listen to me, let me do freely. If I'd had my way, we would have wrestled an hour. That rate on the whole show. Just that they said now they can do that, which is why not?
Right. 3
hours of 2 hours. Take out another 45 minutes of that other horse shit that doesn't mean anything anyway. Just put us on for. But anyway, we he was really touched by the idea. For whatever it's worth, I had insisted originally that I put it over, and then I believe it was Chris and everyone else insisted otherwise. They felt, and so I wasn't gonna. It wasn't anything. It wasn't about winning and losing. So, but I don't want anyone to think that I was pushing my supposed ego up again. But I loved it. I loved it for everything it was. I think it was the last real wrestling match in the business. It was the some ways almost like the tombstone on wrestling. You don't see wrestling like that anymore. What I love about that match is this. I've talked about it a few times, but I remember there's a certain point in that match where you're watching it, and people are sitting there like they used to, old time wrestling fans. These fans aren't educated to wrestling anymore like they used to be. But they're sitting there, and it builds, and then there's a part of you saying, "Oh, geez, I hope this picks up a bit, or the fans get behind." And it's starting to neither one of us ever thought that, but you can see when you're watching it the next day that the fans are sitting and sometimes they're talking to each other, and it's like the interest isn't quite there. And then there's a certain point, like about 8 or 10, 12 minutes into it, you see people kind of starting to lean into it. And then you see them about the 20-minute mark, they're like on the edge of it's like they're so into it, and then the place just that's a great story. And that's what wrestling is supposed to be. You take them from there all the way up to there. It's not supposed to be here at this level from the time you ring the bell to the time it ends. And it was magic to be able to do that without chairs, without
No, it's just all high spots.
fire, and blowtorch, and cannon, and spray gun, and all that kind of stuff. I love the fact that I got to work with Chris. I thought Chris did a lot to make me look good, just so everyone knows. I've been off a long time. I was trying so hard.
How do you feel about Bill Goldberg's public comments about not taking responsibility for the injury that happened at the Starcade?
What happened to me?
Yeah.
I didn't know that he had any. Did he take? He did not take responsibility.
Yeah. So,
No, I hope Bill Goldberg. I would love to kick him in the head the same way he kicked me.
do you hold him responsible then, I guess?
Or
do you hold WCW responsible?
I hold a remark like that makes me hold him responsible. I didn't have any hard feelings towards Bill, but I think he's sometimes. I know when he hurt Haku many years ago, he dropped Haku on his head, and I didn't see it, and I don't know what happened there either. But I remember talking to him the next day at the airport, and he was kind of upset about it, and he was innocent. He said, "I never even did it. It was Haku's fault," and he sort of denied all responsibility for it. And I don't know if that's another case of it being the same here. All I know is that Bill Goldberg threw me in the ropes. There's a couple of them. I mean, this is just the truth. There's one part in that match, and if you watch it really slow, we've been on the floor. I came back in the ring. And it's funny, one of the first things I said to Bill Goldberg going out to the ring was for Bill not to hurt me. I said, "Bill, whatever you do, don't hurt me." So we went in and had the match. And there's one part in the match where he gave me an elbow in the face. He gave me two of them. There's one that he gave me would be about the same as someone taking a brick in a pillowcase and just swinging it at you as hard as you can. He knocked me out cold in the corner with an elbow smash. Like when he knocked me, I mean, I saw stars. Like it was like this, and you could see Bill go, "Oh, like sorry." You can actually see his mouth the words that he's sorry. And I'm like hanging there going, "Holy shit, this guy makes Vader look like Shawn Michaels."
Right.
You know? And then he threw me in the turnbuckle. I moved, and he went through, and I think he almost hit his head on the post. I rolled out on the floor. I tried to do that figure four spot, which the trick to the figure four spot on the post is that he's got to grab my foot. When I get my foot up on the apron, he's got to grab my foot to slow my momentum down. He goes to grab my foot. I go to fall back. He lets go of my foot. I smash my head on the floor. So I got two really good whacks on the head. And I fell down. When I got out of that hold, I buckled on top of myself with all my weight. So I actually folded up like an accordion and thought I wrenched a muscle in my back or snapped I don't know what I did, but I could hardly take a breath after that. And almost affected me being able to finish the match. So getting in with Bill, I can't get him to do anything but get hurt. And those are both Bill's fault, both those two, especially the forearm. So then I go in the ring and I do the best I can. I soldier on. And he throws me in the ropes for this mule kick. And if you ever watch it back, there's no work in it whatsoever. He threw me in the ropes and kicked me with every ounce of strength he had in his whole body. He's full extension. His leg is completely straight. If you learn pro wrestling, Bill, you'll know that you bend your leg a little bit. And I turned and he kicked me so hard here in the back of my head, right in the back of my brain, tore this muscle in half, which will never go back. I've got a hole this big in my muscle in my neck. Went down, I held my neck, and I saw a million stars. That was the injury. I can't remember much after. I remember the match because I've seen it on videotape and I can remember it. So you do. I remember in the dressing room, nobody took care of me. There was no doctor. I had a trainer come up and hand me a couple of Advils. No one helped me to my car. No one took me to the hospital or checked on anything. No one even did the nothing. I got back to my hotel room that night. Staggered through the lobby of the hotel, barely made it to my room, passed out with all my clothes on the bed. And worked with Bill Goldberg the following night. I don't remember getting hurt, but I certainly never was a picnic. I worked with Benoit in Salisbury, Maryland, and they have a match where Goldberg runs out. You probably know the story about him chasing out of the ring, and then he punches his hand through a window.
Right.
And so Bill, who got hurt with the thing on his elbow, I remember I called Bill, and as messed up as I was at home with my concussion. I don't remember New Year's, I don't remember the millennium or Christmas or anything. But I remember I did call Bill up and was worried about his arm. Never ever did get a call back. I wrestled on for 3 or 4 through. I wrestled till January 11th, I think.
I think your last match was with Terry Funk, I believe, at Thunder.
No, Kevin Nash, Buffalo.
Okay.
And I did Erie. But all of it was like, I was in this, I'm being choke slammed every night by Sid. I'm being power bombed by Kevin Nash. All the worst things you can have with a concussion. When Sid power bombed me in the match with him, he interfered at the end. When he power bombed me at the end of that, I saw a million stars. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I saw these silver dots like this, just thousands of them, millions of them, lying in the ring. And I said, okay, you've had another concussion. Like I could tell, I had rocked my head. I was getting where I was seeing silver, like the color of solder.
Right.
That silver. And I was luckily going home to see my doctor about my neck. But anyway, the point I was going to make about Bill was that I called Bill when he hurt his arm, which was a serious injury. I never heard from Bill Goldberg once the whole time I was injured. He ended my career. He hurt me in all, even aside from the monetary damage that I lost, just the concern and fear I had from brain damage. I couldn't remember anything. I'm happy to say that I think I'm pretty much, most of it's all back to normal, I think now, or at least I hope it is. But he definitely positively for sure ended my career. And for him to resent anything or be angry at me for anything, it's shocking for me to think that he would be upset with me. I was very good with him about it. I never, when he did talk to me, he gave me a hug, and he was very apologetic. And I don't know, I'm quite sure what his beef with me would be. I understand that you can get hurt in the job. I understand that. I understood that he was a green, kind of big, strong, kind of monster before I ever got in the ring with him. It's just a shame that he doesn't know that. It's a shame he doesn't know how to work.
Does it bother you that Vince Russo sat home for months when he had a concussion and they didn't, release him, but at the same time you were let go because of your injury?
Well, everybody's got their deal. I don't know his deal.
Okay. Before they let you go, before they released you, how did the idea come about for you to support Lance Storm?
I never heard anything about it.
Because you did come out a couple times. You sat in the audience, I think. I believe.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have any problem with it.
Right.
I would love to have done something with Lance Storm. I was trying to everything that anything that WCW asked me to do, I was trying to do. I tried to comply with them. The only thing they kept asking me all the time was, okay, when can you work? I'm going, I can't. How long will you know? And with a concussion, you don't know. Like, you have to keep getting evaluated all the time. So when you keep getting evaluated, they assume that you're stalling or giving them a line.
Right.
So, and in my case, I was seeing doctors. The doctors I saw were the head of the NHL Players Association for concussions and the head of the CFL, which maybe don't come much for down here. But they were credible doctors, very credible doctors. They weren't just some quack doctor down the street or my doctor that I've always had to know with. These were doctors of the highest order, and all I could do is go on what they were saying. It was a weird thing about concussions is that I would have found myself saying, and I would have gone back to, I would have said, I'm okay.
Right.
I remember, and look at how I worked for 3.5 weeks thinking I was okay. You think sometimes like I'm okay because you can walk and you can talk. I don't know, even if when I did that interview with you guys, I don't remember when it was, but you can sort of come across like you're pretty coherent. But that's not the case. You don't remember what you're saying. I did that off the record with Michael Landsberg and had to answer all those things from Vince McMahon. All those months of pent up rage and frustration and anger. I had to answer those questions. I remember when I came home, I digressed about a 3-week period after that. It took so much out of me I could barely, you start stuttering everywhere you go. And you can't concentrate. You can't remember what anything is. You watch a shaving commercial on TV and you break down crying. It becomes very, and then you realize, like, okay, I'm not ready to go back and anything. I'm not working anybody. This is so real. And I was worried for at least 6-7 months that I was never going to get better.
How did you find out that you were actually going to be released? Through the mail, I believe?
Yeah, I got a letter from them. So mind you, they were kind enough to call my management up and tell them that they were sending me a letter that I'd get the next morning that was going to release me.
Whose decision do you think it was?
Well, obviously it had to be Siegel. I mean, I could go right to the top. I wasn't surprised, I guess.
Are you bitter towards the business or towards WCW management? Not the business.
No, not really. I think that they were really. I'm not bitter. I don't think they. It was like a ship that was sinking, and that was just like a TV that they throw overboard or something. It's like they didn't know what the hell they were doing. But they were trying to plug some holes, or I don't think they did right by me. That's for sure. And I think that they were a lot of ways a company that there was some nice people that worked there, and I don't really have any bad feelings towards anybody in particular, but I also know that they were a pretty stupid company.
Now, if you were still with WCW and with Vince buying the company, what do you think would have become of Bret Hart? Would you have stayed, or would you have asked for your release?
I would have tried to get my money. I mean, I would have. I don't know. That's a really tough question. I don't think I would have sold out my principles on, especially with what happened with Owen and all that. I probably would have just stepped down. But at the same time, I made a promise to myself before Montreal. I made a promise to myself before what happened with my brother. After all those van trips and all those blade jobs and all those broken bones, that the money that I had in my contract, I was going to get what I had deserved after all those years. It's like, I want what I'm supposed to get here, and I'm going to get it, and I'm going to go home. I'm going to be with my family. And I think I would have tried to the best of my ability to do that. But I also will say that I don't know that how many more years I would have wrestled. I don't know. I think I would have looked at it 1 year at a time. If I think right now with the sale, I don't know. I doubt very much that I would have ever worked for him again.
Will you actually ever be able to step in the ring again and actually work again, or no?
Never.
Never.
No.
Wow.
maybe as a manager or something like that. I don't see that being a very dignified exit for me anyway.
What are the things that you disagree with Dynamite Kid's book? And have you spoke to Dynamite?
I haven't talked to him since. I didn't like the way, I didn't like anything about it. I mean, I kind of felt sorry for him reading it. I don't have any real bad feelings towards Dynamite. As a matter of fact, I think I've been working on a book. And I think when the book I write about Dynamite will actually do more service, like more justice to him than he did to himself. I think Dynamite, the guy that put that book together, was a guy that was a bitter, broken man kind of thing that was, I don't know, he's probably got a lot of alcohol problems and things like that. A lot of his facts were wrong. A lot of things he said are directly, like he says something in there. He doesn't really. These are like the most small things. I don't want to take personal things that he said about me as examples, but he, for example, he talked about one time how I had some match with Abdul the Butcher, and he was pissed off about that or something like that. I got news from him. I never wrestled Abdul the Butcher ever. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. It's like a lot of this stuff is like. It's like if someone reads it, they go, "Oh, okay," but it's like I got news for you. So much of it isn't even. It never happened. It's not there. There's no evidence of this stuff ever being true. My dad wasn't getting these huge kickbacks from Japanese wrestling promoters on account of him or holding him back. And I got booked to Japan because I got booked to Japan. It had nothing to do with anything that he did, and not. There's just so many things that Dynamite said where I was disappointed because I've been pretty good to his kids and his family back home, and I've always thought, I've always made an effort to treat his kids almost like my own. And when he sort of painted me with the way he did it, I thought, geez, this guy isn't grateful for the things I do. I guess he resents the fact that maybe I take care of his kids or try to look out for him, which I always did out of respect for him. I still respect him. I love the Dynamite Kid, the guy I know. And I think you have to take into account that you take a guy that was maybe the best wrestler there ever was, certainly one of the most creative minds and talented guys in the business, and you strap him into a wheelchair and you throw Bret Hart's name at him, Davey Boy Smith's name at him, you throw all these names of these guys and I think it does break his heart and it does bring out the bitterness in him. So I understand, but my last conversation with Dynamite was in England. I should pay for his surgery for his back out of my own pocket. And then I read the book. I remember he was telling me about it almost in a very, he thought it was such a great laugh, but he's told some very derogatory story about my father that's always, it's just a story. People make up stories in the wrestling business, and there was a nasty story that was always circulated about my dad, about how he was cooking eggs or something, and he scoops up the cat shit or something. And it was always a very insulting story that never ever happened. Anyone with any real sense would tell you it's never happened. It's just a nasty sort of ugly story that I always resented it. And he knew that. And my dad had been through a lot. And I think my dad, when Dynamite wrote his book, he was really looking forward to reading it, like that he would probably say some nice, of all things, I think he could have said some nice things about my dad. It wasn't so much about me, but it was more about my father. And when I read some of the way he spoke about my father and the stories that he made, I think he thought they would be funny to someone reading the book. They're certainly not based on fact. I dropped all association with him after that. I think after what my father went through, which is more than what he's been through, he could have been a little kinder to my father, because my dad loved Tom. I hope my father was spared every reading that book. It would have broke his heart, I think, to read how ungrateful Dynamite was for what Stu did for him.
What are your thoughts on Vince buying WCW?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't want to go some bull. I'd hate to be the guy to go, it'll be the death of wrestling, because it probably won't be. I think it's the death of the wrestlers ever having any kind of union or anything like that. They have no bargaining position anymore, and I got news for them, they never will. I would strongly refrain from having my kids or anybody I know ever get into it for that reason.
I was going to ask you about Teddy Hart. He's doing the thing up there in Calgary with MattRats.com. I don't know if you're familiar with it, obviously.
A little bit.
Right. What are your thoughts on Eric Bischoff? He's now involved with that company.
I wish him luck. I don't know.
Do you think that putting that on a national level would hurt the business when fans see kids doing moves that big guys do?
I'm not sure. I think you have to look at a finished show, and maybe there's some merit to it. And at the same time, maybe I watch it and go, "What a joke."
Right.
I know my dad. Maybe we're just over our time. I remember I saw a few weeks ago at the house. Ted was there, and they were putting on a tape, and I actually enjoyed some of the wrestling that I watched. It was Ted and all these guys, and they did some really, look like Nitro kind of wrestling, Mexicans, and a lot of really wonderful twirls and twists and flips, and
right.
It's one of the best ballet you ever see in wrestling. But it was, it's not my kind of wrestling, but it was certainly athletic and certainly fast moving and dangerous. And Stu got up and left. He told me, he said, his exact words to me, he said, a good way to break your neck. And he didn't want to watch it anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of the same for me. I don't want to watch. I actually find now I'd rather watch Ultimate Fight wrestling and enjoy a struggle and a contest. And I know that's different than pro wrestling. But that's what pro wrestling was always supposed to be. It was supposed to be a struggle, and guys fighting to get out of holds and trying to reversals. And this ballet stuff that wrestlers do today, I'm glad it's popular. I know the guys that are doing it, they're 120 pounds most of the time. They're very well conditioned, and it takes a lot of skill to do those things. I'm not trying to minimize it, but it's not pro wrestling. Well, I guess it is, but it's not the kind of pro wrestling I like.
Since maybe you will never have another chance to go on TV, like this is maybe your last opportunity, how would you, first, how would you like to be remembered in the business? And also, is there anything you want to say to your fans that might be watching this videotape right now?
I got a book coming out.
I was going to answer that too, if you want to talk about all that.
Well, I'm working on a book. I'm not working on a negative book, though. I don't want to write a book that's ugly or dark. I'd like to write a book that's very honest. And I think I'd like to write a book that brings out the best parts of the wrestling, and the friendships and the camaraderie of the dressing room, the respect, things like that. I think a lot of the wrestlers, I think of all the wrestlers that did the best with the books. I thought most all the books you could flush in the toilet, except for Mankind's. It was a nice book, mostly because it was honest and it was thoughtfully written. I did like Mankind's book, but in reflection to myself, Mankind missed a lot. Like, he wasn't around. And Mankind's a totally different kind of wrestler. I was never a masochist. I could get more mileage out of working out of my arm than having it crash through 14 tables set on fire. And it's like, I certainly have a lot of respect for Mankind. I thought he was great work. He's a great friend of mine, I think, still. So I don't mean to, but in me, I go back to Skylar Low. My first memories of midgets, like wrestling, was climbing into I think the very first time I went to a wrestling match, I climbed into a limousine with my dad with 4 midgets, and it's like, this is my life. It starts from there. I know every wrestler, and Andre the Giant. I see these old guys. I remember Don Leo Jonathan walking in the dressing room in Vancouver, and they wouldn't even let him in. And the guys were saying, "I know who he is." I said, have you ever seen the picture of Don Leo Jonathan drop kicking Andre the Giant at an angle like that? It tells you what a great athlete and wrestler he was. The Gene Kiniskis, the Brunos. I was around for all of that, where Mankind wasn't, and Steve Austin wasn't, and Rock. Well, Rock might have some stories, but they certainly didn't come out. His book that was written by the WWF. but anyway, I just think that I can take you back and really sort of explain what wrestling maybe, what it meant to me anyway. So I think I should have a good book that I'm working on. I'm really happy with what I've got written so far. But it's not a dark book. At least I'm trying not to make it. It's more of a tribute to wrestling than it is anything else.
How do you want the fans to remember you?
Well, I think if they just remember me, it would be nice.
One final question, we'll wrap it up. Your thoughts on wrestlers that can never get out of the business, that can't retire?
Like Hogan's and Flair's. And, well, whatever makes you happy. I have never had any problem with it. Sometimes I feel sorry for them. I think because it becomes all you know. In the end, that's what it is. It becomes you confess to yourself at night and go, that's all I know. That's all I am. I am a professional wrestler. My friends are professional wrestlers. My life is professional wrestling. Everything I do, eat, sleep, drink, wake up in the morning, everything I am a professional wrestler, and that's all I ever will be. And I have nothing else. And I'm not like that. To me, it was a job. I don't need the wrestling business. I wish sometimes, like I always thought when I got out of wrestling, I could open up a wrestling school. I would teach guys what I would consider an art form, how to really wrestle. Unfortunately, I think with my concussion, I can't even do that. I can't even take bumps or fall back to this. It's like my inroads into wrestling are pretty much all cut off.
What is your life now without wrestling?
I don't watch it anymore. Not because I'm bitter or anything like that. People will say that or think that. Maybe sorry, still bitter or something. I try to watch it. I turn it on. I see maybe Stephanie McMahon pulling somebody's top off or something. I just turn the channels on. It just doesn't strike me anymore. And a lot of the really good wrestlers, it's just so rehearsed all the time. It's so unreal. Like there'll be fights like that in the bar. I like the old, slower, ponderous wrestlers and the holds. And I was watching. I've watched in sort of writing my book. I've watched a lot of my old Stampede wrestling tapes, which most of the best parts of the matches were always cut off, and they didn't film them because they wanted you to come see it live. So you can't really base how great the work was in the time as it really was. But I loved it. When I watch it and I go, that's so much better. It's so much slower. It's like watching Raging Bull. It's real wrestling as far as pro wrestling can go. It just seems so much more real, and facial expressions, and people are really trying to win, and people are trying to get I was watching AWA wrestling, the all-time great wrestling, and I watched Vern Gagne, who I've never watched my whole life. I thought he was a great wrestler. I thought he was a really good wrestler. And I would rather watch that wrestling than any of that horseshit that's out there today. This ballet twirls and leaps, and you can see that on. It reminds me of like a bunch of antelope running in the field or something. It just doesn't do anything for me.
Do you have any regrets?
I have one regret. I regret that I didn't give my brother a one out of the WWF. I think that I regret that I couldn't stop what had happened to him from happening. I find if there is any kind of bitterness in me, it would stem a lot to that, because I think I've always thought of myself as somebody that we always worked so hard to come home. And I think I'm there now. I finally did come home. And I want to be talked so many times about coming home someday. And you think like, okay, when you come home, I could just picture it. I'd be sitting out on my back deck at my house, maybe over at Owen's house. Our kids would be growing up. We always did a really good job of raising our kids with values and things like that. It would have been a nice success for both of us to look back and go, we did it, and clink a couple of beers together and think, and talk about stuff we did with the Steiners, and talk about stuff we did with Davey or Lex Luger. Remember that time with Yoko?
Right.
We had so many funny stories that have nothing to do with wrestling. And I mean, I don't exaggerate. I think that so many things that I would have been able to enjoy about my career, and even what happened with Vince, I would have always been able to sit down with Owen and go, remember that time? And I've lost that. I've lost I don't have that opportunity anymore to really take those things and enjoy them with anybody. I mean, my situation is like, it's tough within my family. It's tough with me in relation to someone like Jim Neidhart and Davey Boy, who haven't done very well by themselves. Even Dynamite. It's like I've got nobody left to reminisce with. enjoy those things. And so I find that I celebrate my little personal highlights or moments mostly by myself.
Do any of the boys keep in contact with you at all, or?
Actually, I hear from Brian Knobs a lot.
Good.
And it sounds so sad. I hear from Brian Knobs. I hear from Brian Adams. I talk to some wrestlers in the WWF, but sometimes I'm a little reluctant to say who they are because they'll be doing jobs on TV or something. Associating themselves with me. I talk to enough. I don't think a lot of them have my number. So, and I think I've gone through a certain period where, especially when I had my concussion, I really had to kind of shut down my the channels for people to sort of talk to me. Mostly because I was too incoherent to remember what I was saying. I got where I couldn't talk. I had to sort of disconnect myself because I'd forget what I was talking about on the phone and know it and feel bad and feel stupid. So I think since maybe November, and then when I got fired or released or whatever, and then it's like I've kind of just been working and sort of putting my own life together for the first time. So a lot of I don't think that wrestlers don't call me up or anything. So I think it's just a case of not being able to renew that. And I look forward someday to talking to a lot. I've made a lot of friends in wrestling. I think people always ask me, "What do you miss about wrestling?" Well, I miss the odd match. I miss the moment of being able to know that I worked the crowd. Not like the wrestlers today that are being worked by the crowd. But I love the fact that I could, have the meeting out in the palm of my hand.
Right.
I miss that sometimes. I miss being a heel sometimes. More than anything, I think I miss just my friends. I mean, a lot of friends that I met on the road, and I think I miss a lot of the wrestlers themselves. The exception of maybe Shawn Michaels, and I'll probably throw Hunter Helmsley into that too, just for the heck of it. But with the exception of those two guys, I don't think there's anybody in the business that I ever had any bad feelings for.
TitleMatchNetwork.com